This morning, this is something that we reported over the weekend, but now NBC News is also reporting. They say they have three law enforcement sources who are emphasizing that the case has not gone cold, which is also what sources have been telling me. Um, someone said it might be chilling, but has not gone cold. Whatever, I don't know, whichever you want to read into that. So the hope is that there's a lot we don't know that's happening behind the scenes right now. There was kind of some drama yesterday. There was these women that showed up like searchers, and they had a shovel, and they started like digging in the ground here in this area. Like, I don't really know what they were doing, but anyway, I think that's why the sheriff's deputies ended up getting called out here. So there's been some kind of characters that have shown up. But most people have really good intentions. A lot of the neighbors are just so upset because they've known Nancy for so long. So I got a couple of things I'm going to work on today, and I'll update you guys later. But I just wanted to check in, and we may get an update later from the sheriff's office. So I'll keep you guys posted.
The moonlight over Tucson, Arizona, usually offers a serene, silver glow to the desert landscape. But on the night Nancy Guthrie vanished, that silence became a tomb. It has been 79 days, nearly 80 sunrises, since the 84-year-old matriarch was erased from her own home. No struggle heard by neighbors, no shattered glass, just an empty bed and a chilling void where a life once stood. In the dark documentary of this investigation, we have reached a pivotal moment, a day where the digital breadcrumbs of a Bitcoin wallet and the psychological sketches of FBI profilers are finally starting to scream. Nancy Guthrie wasn't just anyone. She was a woman whose presence was woven into the fabric of her community. But to a predator, she may have been viewed as a different kind of symbol. We have to look at the profile. Expert profilers, the elite minds who peel back the layers of the criminal psyche, are beginning to paint a terrifying picture of the person who took her. They don't see a random drifter. They see someone unafraid. In the graininess of the surveillance footage, there is an arrogance in the suspect's stride, a man who moves with the cold confidence of someone who has walked these floors before. Statistics in these tragedies are rarely kind. Dr. Gary Brucato, a renowned voice in the field, points to a haunting reality. 92% of women who are murdered are killed by someone they know. While we hold onto the sliver of hope that Nancy is alive, the FBI is operating on the heavy weight of those numbers. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It feels like a crime of intimacy. Whether it was a contractor she once trusted to fix a leak or a face she smiled at in passing, the shadow in her hallway likely had a name she recognized. Then there is the matter of the ransom. Early in the disappearance, 2 letters arrived at TV stations in Arizona, notes that Nancy's daughter, Savannah, believed were the real deal. They demanded Bitcoin, the currency of the digital underworld. But here is where the investigation takes a cinematic turn into the world of high-stakes negotiation. On February 10th, a small transaction appeared in that Bitcoin wallet. It wasn't the ransom payment. It was a digital handshake from the authorities. A note was attached, a cold, calculated line of text. "We are ready to talk. Contact us." But the line went dead. The kidnapper never bit. Why would a kidnapper demand a fortune and then ignore the very door they asked to be opened? It's a question that keeps retired FBI agent Steve Moore awake at night. In the psychology of a kidnapping, this is a zero-sum game. The FBI's refusal to simply pay and pray is a strategic wall. To show desperation is to lose leverage. Yet, as the days turn into weeks, the silence from that Bitcoin wallet suggests something far more sinister than a search for money. It suggests that the ransom might have been a smokescreen, a frantic attempt to lead investigators away from a much darker, much more personal motive: retribution. Somewhere in the Tucson desert, or perhaps in a room just a few miles from where she was taken, the truth about Nancy Guthrie is hidden. The FBI is no longer just looking for a body. They are looking for a grudge. They are looking for the boss and the underlings that Dr. Ann Burgess believes orchestrated this sophisticated snatching. They are looking for the motive that outweighs a Bitcoin fortune. As we prepare to dive deeper into the forensic breakthroughs, including a single strand of hair that may hold the key to everything. We have to ask, was Nancy taken for what she had or for who her family is? This story is unfolding in real time, and every detail matters. If you find these deep dives into the dark corners of justice important, please subscribe to True Crime Threads, like this video, and share it to help keep Nancy's face in the public eye. Your engagement ensures these stories aren't forgotten. Do you believe the ransom notes were a genuine attempt to get money, or were they merely a distraction to confuse the FBI? While the digital trail in the Bitcoin wallet remains frozen in time, the investigation has shifted its focus from the glow of computer screens to the sterile, high-powered microscopes of Quantico, Virginia. For months, the Pima County Sheriff's Department worked with a private lab in Florida, sifting through the microscopic debris left behind in Nancy's bedroom. It was there, amidst the fibers of her bedsheets, that they found it, a single strand of hair. It is a tiny, fragile piece of biological evidence, but in a case defined by disappearances, it is the most substantial thing the FBI has to hold on to. This hair has now been dispatched to the FBI's elite laboratory for advanced testing. In the world of forensics, this is the ultimate gamble. As Steve Moore points out, the presence of a hair follicle, the root, is the difference between a definitive map of a killer's DNA and a blurry sketch. But technology is moving at a breakneck pace. Even without the root, scientists are beginning to extract genetic profiles from the shaft of the hair itself. This strand represents a moment of physical contact, a lean over the bed, a struggle in the dark, or perhaps the heavy breathing of a suspect who thought they were being careful. It is a silent witness that the kidnapper couldn't see, couldn't scrub away, and couldn't take with them. But who are they looking for? This is where the profile becomes bone-chilling. FBI profilers, including the legendary Dr. Ann Burgess, are moving away from the idea of a lone wolf. They are beginning to suspect a hierarchy, a boss who coordinated the hit and underlings who carried out the physical abduction. This isn't just a kidnapping, it's an operation. And the motive, it may be far more personal than a Bitcoin payout. The investigation is now looking back, not just weeks or months, but 10 to 15 years. They are searching for a grudge holder, someone who feels slighted by the Guthrie family's prominence. When you are a public figure like Nancy's daughter, Savannah, you don't just attract fans, you attract obsessions. Profilers suggest the suspect might be a retributionist, someone who saw Nancy not as a person, but as a way to strike at the heart of a family they felt owed them something. This would explain the bad faith negotiations. If the goal was never the money, but rather to cause the maximum amount of psychological torment, then the ransom letters served their purpose perfectly. They provided hope, only to snatch it away with silence. As Brian Entin has followed, the FBI is now meticulously combing through Nancy's old bank records, looking for contractors, former employees, or anyone who might have stepped into her life and left with a simmering resentment. They are looking for the man who moved unafraid through her home because, in his mind, he wasn't a stranger, he was a debt collector coming to settle a score. The question now isn't just where Nancy is, but who was she to the man in the shadow? Was she a target of opportunity, or the final piece in a decade-long plan for revenge? What do you think is more likely? That the single hair belongs to a professional underling hired for the job, or the primary suspect who holds the grudge? As the sun sets on day 79, the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance has reached a chilling crossroads where the why is becoming more important than the how. In the quiet corridors of the FBI, a new theory is gaining traction, one that suggests this wasn't a crime of passion or a desperate grab for cash, but a calculated strike orchestrated by a boss with a clinical level of detachment. Dr. Ann Burgess, an expert who has spent decades peering into the minds of the world's most dangerous predators, points to a disturbing possibility. Nancy may have been taken by a crew, a sophisticated hierarchy where the person doing the snatching is merely an arm of a much larger, more vengeful body. This syndicate theory changes everything. It explains why the surveillance footage shows a man so remarkably unafraid. If he was a hired underling following a script, his confidence didn't come from his own ego, but from the plan provided to him. It explains the bad faith of the ransom letters. In traditional kidnappings, the criminal is desperate to exchange the victim for the money. But here, the kidnappers have sabotaged their own profit by dragging the media into the middle of the negotiation. According to Steve Moore, when you take a ransom demand to TMZ or the local news, you aren't looking for a payday, you're looking for a stage. You're making the Guthrie family's private nightmare a public spectacle. But why would anyone go to such lengths to destroy the peace of an 84-year-old woman? The answer may lie in the very thing that makes the Guthrie family unique, their prominence. The FBI is now looking at the dark side of fame. They are investigating the possibility that this was retribution, a cold-blooded revenge plot against Nancy's daughter, Savannah. Profilers are scouring years of digital records, looking for the grudge holders, obsessed individuals who may have perceived a slight in a broadcast or developed a fixated hatred for the family's success. There is a precedent for this kind of displacement crime. Steve Moore recalls a haunting case from Denver where a DJ was murdered not for anything he did personally, but because of the guests he hosted on his show. The killers were 3 states away, fueled by a hatred that had nothing to do with the victim and everything to do with the platform he stood on. In Nancy's case, she may have been the most vulnerable link in a chain that a predator wanted to break. The investigation has now widened its net, going back a decade to analyze every contractor who stepped onto Nancy's property and every individual who ever sent a threatening letter to the network. They are searching for the person who believed Savannah Guthrie had infinite money and decided to collect a debt that didn't exist. As Brian Entin prepares to head back into the field for a new project specifically targeting Nancy's story, the clock continues to tick. The FBI has the profile. They have the single strand of hair from the sheets. They have the silent Bitcoin wallet. But as every investigator knows, a profile is just a sketch until you put a name to the face. The boss is still out there, the underlings are still silent, and Nancy Guthrie is still missing. The question that remains is the most haunting of all. In a world where every move is tracked and every digital cent is accounted for, how does an 84-year-old woman simply vanish into thin air? While the psychological battle lines are drawn in the digital sand of the Bitcoin wallet, a more visceral piece of evidence has emerged from the physical shadows of the Catalina foothills. The FBI, utilizing sophisticated recovery techniques on Google's backend systems, managed to retrieve a sequence of surveillance videos that were almost lost to time. In these frames, we see the masked figure who stepped into Nancy's world on that final night. He stands roughly 5'9", with an average build, but it's the gear he carries that has set the investigation on fire. The suspect is seen wearing a very specific piece of equipment, a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack. To the untrained eye, it's just a backpack. To the FBI, it's a signature. It suggests someone prepared for a trek, someone who knew the rugged, remote terrain surrounding the Guthrie home, or perhaps someone who wanted to look like just another hiker in a desert town. But even more chilling is what was left behind. Investigators have confirmed the discovery of bloodstains at the entrance of Nancy's home. Forensic testing has since verified the nightmare. The DNA from that blood belongs to Nancy. This wasn't just a peaceful removal, it was a violent extraction. This detail shatters the unafraid narrative with a dose of brutal reality. If Nancy was injured at the very start, the clock wasn't just ticking for the investigation, it was ticking for her survival. Brian Entin has uncovered deep frustrations within the law enforcement community regarding the early days of this hunt. Sources suggest that in those first critical hours, some investigators mistakenly believed Nancy might have simply wandered off, a delay that may have given the kidnapper the head start they needed to vanish into the desert. Now, with the Pima County Sheriff facing criticism for a lack of homicide experience within the initial leadership, the FBI has taken a much more aggressive stance. They are no longer just looking for a missing person. They are processing a crime scene that suggests a targeted, forceful abduction. They are looking for the hiker pack suspect. They are looking for the man who was armed with a holstered handgun as he tampered with her doorbell camera. Every hiker, every contractor, and every grudge holder with a black Ozark Trail bag is now in the crosshairs. As Savannah Guthrie returns to the Today Show desk, she does so under a cloud of agony that no mother or daughter should ever have to face. The $1 million reward remains on the table, a king's ransom for a single name. But as we look at the blood on the threshold and the mask on the camera, we have to wonder, is the person who took Nancy Guthrie even looking for the money, or are they simply watching the chaos they've created? While the world watches the digital chess match of Bitcoin wallets and forensic hair analysis, a chilling piece of data has emerged from Nancy's own body, a detail that paints a precise, terrifying window into her final moments in the home. Investigators have revealed that Nancy's pacemaker, a device designed to keep her heart in rhythm, provided the most harrowing evidence of all. At approximately 2:30 a.m. on the night she vanished, the device lost its connection to her phone. In the language of forensic technology, this suggests a sudden, forced movement. The pacemaker didn't just stop, it was moved out of range. This 2:30 a.m. timestamp aligns perfectly with the graininess of the doorbell footage, showing the masked figure with the Ozark Trail backpack on her porch. It confirms that within minutes of that shadow appearing, Nancy was no longer in her bedroom. She was being taken, her heart still beating, into the cold Tucson night. This revelation has shifted the FBI's focus toward the immediate perimeter. On this very Wednesday, the Bureau has been seen conducting coordinated searches along specific Tucson roadways. They aren't just looking for Nancy. They are looking for anything she might have dropped, or anything the unafraid suspect might have discarded in a moment of haste. The search area is vast, but the pacemaker's final signal has narrowed the starting line to that 2:30 a.m. window. Adding to the complexity are the conflicting reports from Mexico. A note sent to TMZ claimed that Nancy was seen alive south of the border in early April. While the FBI remains skeptical, the proximity of Tucson to the border, only 70 miles, makes the Mexico lead a logistical possibility that cannot be ignored. Is she a captive in a foreign land, or is this just another layer of the bad faith smokescreen designed to send investigators on a wild goose chase? Steve Moore warns that the more public the case becomes, the more imposter notes and false sightings will emerge. We've already seen one arrest for a fraudulent ransom note early in the investigation. The syndicate of silence depends on this noise to hide the signal, but the FBI isn't distracted. They are focused on the DNA, the backpack, and the timeline. The weight of this 80-day silence is heaviest on Savannah Guthrie, who has returned to her post at NBC while her heart remains in the Arizona desert. The $1 million reward is a beacon, but it requires someone to choose the money over their loyalty to the boss. As the search along the Tucson highways continues, we are left to wonder, was the 2:30 a.m. signal the beginning of a long journey, or the start of a trail that ends much closer than we think? As day 79 bleeds into day 80, the psychological warfare between the FBI and Nancy's abductors has shifted into a high-stakes standoff. But in the Nancy Guthrie investigation, the suspect has provided zero proof of life. There have been no photos of Nancy holding a current newspaper, no voice recordings, and no specific details that only she would know. Instead, the abductor has chosen the path of public humiliation. By sending ransom notes to media giants like TMZ and local news stations, rather than directly to the family or the Bureau, they aren't trying to get paid. They are trying to control the narrative. They want the Guthrie family to suffer under the white-hot glare of the public eye. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer suggests that this move was designed to spark a public backlash against the family, turning a private tragedy into a social media circus. The kidnappers understood a fundamental truth about the Guthries. Their public perception is their lifeblood, and by weaponizing the media, the suspect has struck at their most vulnerable point. This is why the FBI is not sending the Bitcoin. To the Bureau, this isn't a transaction. It's a negotiation where the other side hasn't even shown their hand. However, some experts are suggesting a tactical maneuver known as tickling the wire. This would involve sending a fraction of a Bitcoin, perhaps half a coin to the wallet address provided in the notes. The goal wouldn't be to fulfill the ransom, but to force the suspect to move the funds. In the world of blockchain, movement is exposure. Every time that Bitcoin is transferred to a different exchange or attempted to be off-ramped into cash, a digital fingerprint is left behind. The FBI is waiting for that one moment of digital arrogance. They are watching the public ledgers, hopping the suspect, who has shown such unafraid confidence on camera, will believe they are untraceable in the cryptosphere. But as Brian Entin has reported, the Bureau's cyber division in Quantico is already building a map of every connection linked to that wallet. They are waiting for the suspect to try and wash the coins, because in that split second of transaction, the shadow in the Tucson desert might finally reveal a physical location. The question that haunts this 80-day mark is no longer just, where is Nancy? But who is the sender really? If they aren't seeking the official $1.2 million reward money and are instead demanding untraceable crypto through the media, are we dealing with a kidnapper at all, or a cruel opportunist who has inserted themselves into a family's deepest trauma for the sake of a digital payout? As the investigation reaches day 79, a storm is brewing behind the scenes of the search for Nancy Guthrie. For months, the public was led to believe that every available resource was being poured into the forensic analysis of her Tucson home. But Brian Entin has uncovered a startling bureaucratic tug-of-war that may have cost the case precious time. While the FBI, the most advanced forensic body in the world, requested access to biological evidence found in Nancy's bedroom over 2 months ago, the Pima County Sheriff's Department chose a different path. They sent the most critical piece of evidence, a single strand of hair, to a private laboratory in Florida. Now, 11 weeks after Nancy was forcibly taken from her bed, that hair has finally arrived at the FBI's laboratory in Quantico. This isn't just a routine transfer. It is an admission that the local investigation hit a wall. The private lab's analysis reportedly returned a mixed profile, a forensic nightmare where the genetic material of more than one person is tangled together. In the quiet, high-tech labs of the Bureau, scientists are now using new technology to perform what experts call a digital separation. They are trying to peel back Nancy's DNA to reveal the shadow that stood over her at 2:30 a.m. This hair is the first direct biological link to the abductor. While the doorbell footage gave us a height of 5'9" and a black Ozark Trail backpack, the DNA could give us a name. But the frustration among federal agents is palpable. As one source told News Nation, the local supervisor in the early days of the probe had no homicide experience, a lack of specialized training that led authorities to initially suggest that an 84-year-old woman with a heart condition had simply wandered off into the desert. By the time they realized a predator had been in the house, the trail had already begun to cool. The stakes of this Quantico analysis cannot be overstated. If the FBI can isolate a clean profile from that entangled strand, they will run it through CODIS, the national database of known offenders. But they are also looking toward a more modern Hail Mary, investigative genetic genealogy. They are searching for the suspect's cousins, siblings, or distant relatives who have uploaded their DNA to public databases. They are looking for the family tree that produced the man in the mask. As Savannah Guthrie returns to the Today Show, her presence is a silent demand for justice. She is no longer just a news anchor. She is a daughter waiting for a lab report that could break the case wide open. The $100,000 FBI reward is still active, but the real breakthrough is currently sitting under a microscope in Virginia. The question we must ask ourselves as we wait for the results from Quantico is simple. In the 11 weeks it took for this evidence to reach the right hands, how far has the suspect traveled, and how much deeper have they buried the truth? As the 80th day of the Nancy Guthrie disappearance draws to a close, the landscape of Tucson remains as beautiful and as brutal as the night she was taken. We are left with a collection of fragments: a 2:30 a.m. signal from a pacemaker, a digital shadow wearing an Ozark Trail hiker pack, a single strand of hair under a microscope in Quantico, and a Bitcoin wallet that remains a frozen monument to a kidnapper's bad faith. The FBI, guided by the cold logic of profiling and the precision of forensic science, continues to peel back the layers of a crime that feels less like a random act of violence and more like a calculated, decade-old score being settled. Yet behind the maps of cell tower pings and the clinical analysis of DNA, there is the human cost. We see it in the eyes of Savannah Guthrie as she delivers the news to a nation, her own heart tethered to a desert she once called home. We see it in a community that no longer leaves its doors unlocked, looking at every passing contractor or unafraid stranger with a new, chilling suspicion. The syndicate of silence that Dr. Ann Burgess warned us about is still holding its breath, waiting to see if the FBI's tickle-the-wire tactics or the genetic genealogy breakthroughs will finally force a name into the light. Steve Moore's haunting reflection remains the most poignant. In a kidnapping, you are both the victim's only hope and the kidnapper's only target. The standoff between justice and retribution is far from over. Whether Nancy was taken for a ransom that was never meant to be paid or as a pawn in a larger game of revenge, the truth is buried somewhere in the vast, arid expanse of the Arizona wilderness, or perhaps within the encrypted ledgers of the deep web. As we wait for the next update, for that one piece of evidence that can't be explained away, we are forced to confront the fragility of safety. Justice for Nancy Guthrie isn't just about finding a suspect. It's about reclaiming the piece of a home that was shattered in the dead of night. The desert may be silent for now, but the voices of those searching for Nancy are only getting louder. What if the motive was never money? If retribution is the key, does that change everything we thought we knew about the person in the mask? If you've been moved by Nancy's story and want to help ensure the search never stops, please subscribe to True Crime Threads. Your support keeps these investigations alive. Like this video, comment with your theories to keep the algorithm pushing this story to new eyes, and share it everywhere. Somewhere, someone knows what happened on day 79. Let's make sure they can't stay silent any longer.